I've recently started building my own custom watches, but I've been ordering all of these parts from AliExpress, and lots of people have been asking if I can try and build a watch from Amazon, and that is exactly what I'm going to be doing today. I've gone for this sort of simple case design. It's a very straightforward case. This Milanese style bracelet, not exactly sure how that's going to look on here, but I've tried to do this to keep costs down, and the bracelets are something that you can buy fairly cheap. I've also got this one here where it might look a little bit better, but this is from AliExpress. I'm going to try and stick to the Amazon stuff. This is the movement. Now this movement is actually quite different to the ones that I normally use. This is a 2813 movement, which is basically a Chinese copy of an ETA movement, which is a Swiss company that makes movements. I don't have the highest hopes, but you've got to remember this is £25, and so it's likely going to be absolutely fine for many, many years to come, and it's only £25. And if you buy it from AliExpress, I know I'm probably going to say that quite a lot, but it is a lot cheaper. Then it's going to be about £10. So it's a very cheap movement, but it's going to do the job. Annoyingly, I couldn't find on Amazon a dial that had a date window. So we're going to basically just be covering up the date with the dial. But the dial's pretty cool. Let me show you this dial. So it's a really beautiful blue color dial. So I really like that. Absolutely logoless, which leaves you to put your own logos on there as well. You can actually order custom logos and stuff. I'll leave a link to a company that does that in the description. So I have all of the parts to build this watch. Let's get on with it. Now, my movement holder is not going to hold this movement because it's so small. And actually inside this case, because this is a case which is specific for this movement, is a very small little plastic bracket that is going to hold the movement. So let's see if we can just place that into there like so. And I wonder now if the movement holder will hold that into place. Yes, it will. That's kind of funny. Okay, so now what we're going to do is go ahead and set the dial down. There's too many feet on the dial. So there's these little legs that stick down. I think they're called dial feet. And that's going to align with two holes that are on this dial. Can I see where those holes are? Yes, there's one at around sort of, what's that, about 4 o'clock. And there's one here at around about 11 o'clock. So we need to flip over this. But make sure as well, because on this dial, if you order the same one as me, it has the 10 seconds counters around the side. So I can see that this one is 5. Hopefully you can see that there. It's an absolutely beautiful dial, but yeah, it says 60 at the top. Well, this dial doesn't actually seem to fit very well on here at all. The holes are just not lining up whatsoever. So this isn't a good start. This is not a good start. I think we're probably going to be okay. It looks like there's one hole that's at least going to align up, but what you've got to remember is once everything gets set into here, it is going to hold it all into place. So as long as one foot is in, I'm thinking it's going to be absolutely fine. But you've got to make sure that that foot is still going to align right. Otherwise, what's going to happen is you're going to have like a skew-if dial. So I'm really just taking my time to see if I can align this properly. But this dial was specifically for the 2813. So either they've just put that in there as a kind of it will fit if you bodge it, or there's been a mistake on this dial. It would be possible for someone, I'm sure, to solder the feet into a slightly better place. I don't think I've got those sorts of skills, so I'm going to just try and cut the feet off that I think are going to get in the way, and then hopefully one or two of them are going to align up somehow, some way. So what I'm doing is putting the dial down and aligning it up, and then looking down the side of the movement where the feet aren't fitting at all, and then I'm going to chop those off. So let me just take a look here. I'm a little bit concerned about this fitment of this dial. It's just really not lining up at all with the feet in place. I'm wondering if I'm going to have to stick some sort of adhesive down or something. Because yeah, you can see here as well, there's a screw that is right where we want that foot to be going down. So I think I'm going to have to chop that one off as well, which then leaves us, as I said before, with only 1 foot, which is also sitting on a screw. So I'm wondering if this is even going to be able to be centered at all. The only other thing I could try and do is bend the feet outwards just a touch to see if that will make them clear those screws, because we kind of need them to align to something. So let me just try and bend these little feet outwards just a tiny bit. There we go. And now if I take the dial and set it down onto the movement, where's the 60? There we go. Right, that has actually aligned it. That has aligned it. Okay, now obviously the other thing is it needs to still fit into this little plastic case. I am not a fan so far, although that actually has fit. That has fit. Let's take the stem out and see if it all fits into the case. This is not how I expected it to go at all. So we can take the stem out. There's a very small little button just there that you can press. So, oh, I mean, look at that. The dial's just flown off. That is because it's not actually being able to hold down anywhere. But what I think I might do is actually cut some very small little adhesive strips and stick them to this little plastic holder here for the movement, because I think that's probably going to be able to hold everything into place enough. But we need to see that everything actually fits into the case still, because I bent some feet out. So that is set on there okay, and it's all centered. And pressing down is fine because the movement goes in from the top. So that is actually going to hold it into place. So now let's see what would happen if I set the movement into the case. We need to unscrew the crown. So it is a screw down crown, which is nice. Yeah, see, that's not going in very nicely at all. Why is that? This is not going very well. There we go. Okay. So is that in? There's no way that's going to go over there. Oh, hang on. This is terrible. If we get a watch at the end of this, I'll be very surprised. This is not great. Okay. Alright, hang on. 1 second, let's take a look. If we forget about everything that's just happened, that actually looks pretty gnarly, to be honest. There's a bit of dust on the dial, but we didn't give it a little air blow. Do you know what? I think if we can get the hands on now, that's actually going to be okay. I think. But yeah, that was a horrible, horrible fitment. Oh, there's a little bit of writing on here. 18k. Can you see that? 18k. 18k what? Of China's cheapest steel. Okay, I've got some 3M double-sided tape here. So what I'm going to do is cut some very thin strips and then use that to try and keep the dial down, because yeah, it needs to stay in place, especially for when we're putting everything together. So I'm going to cut a very, very thin strip like this and just quickly pull that off. It's not very, oh great. Patience, Elliot, patience. Patience is key when it comes to life, but building this watch, definitely. Okay. A little bit of adhesive. Okay, here we have it. We're placing this on. Right, and then we can press down nice and firm. Okay, the dial is stuck down. Who knows how this is going to go, but we're going to now try and put the hands on. I've moved the camera ever so slightly over to the side so that I can hopefully not get in the way as I'm doing this, but it's very difficult to film this, so forgive me. But here we go. Let's get these hands out. Now, I don't feel overly confident that these are going to actually fit because the dial doesn't really fit onto the movement, and so who knows how these hands are going to go. But we are going to try our best. Going to use a little bit of Rodico, which is basically watchmaker's blue tack. It's great for picking things up and not leaving any sort of marks. If you're going to use tweezers, use plastic ones. We're going to start off with the hour hand. Okay, so let's reinstall the crown. Now, as there's no window for the date, we're not going to be able to see where 12 o'clock at midnight is, but what I'm going to do, because I'm a bit of a weirdo, is I'm going to sort of listen out for it. And then that way, we're going to be able to know where midnight is. Complete waste of time. There we go. I just heard it. So, that is midnight, 12 o'clock. Here we go. Our hand first. My hand, your hand, our hand. Please fit. That is all I ask. Here we go, minute hand time. He's done it, the legend. Yes. He's done it. Right, it's seconds hand time. So, this one is very, very tricky because it's incredibly small. These hand pushers vary in size of the sort of diameter of the center hole, which then goes over the pinion, I think that's what that's called, holding the hand in place. And make sure you then adjust the size of hand pusher you're using. I'll leave a link to tools in the description. So here we go. Well, the second hand is moving. So I've done something. Wow. I cannot express how terrible that was. I can't express it. I can try with a sound. This has been truly, truly horrible. And on top of that, I've noticed as well that because I've been trying to test if this, if the hands move and everything's aligned, because the dial is not sat on anything properly, the dial sort of lifted up and then the hour hand scraped the dial. So now I've got a bit of a scratch on the dial. Where is the spare stem? I haven't got one. The spare stem for this case, for the movement, because we need to obviously cut a stem for the new case. Maybe you're supposed to use this stem? Maybe you are. Maybe you're supposed to use this stem. Okay, I'm just giving this case a little clean. Right, let's dust everything off. We need to flip this over and take out the stem again. Let's just put this inside the case, because I think the sooner we do that, the sooner everything's going to sort of stay in place, if you know what I mean. If you are also an optimistic person. Maybe delusionally so. This has been terrible so far. Right, now, let's see if we can do this. There's a little nub sort of sticking out on this side of the movement holder, and then that seems to also align inside the case with this little marking. So I'm going to angle it down like that, and that should hopefully then get everything set in place. There we go. Okay. I tell you what, once it's all cased up, looks a lot better. But I still am not holding out hope, because we still have to sort the crown out. Everything's going to have to align, and then we need to get the case back on. This temporary crown is actually unscrewing. So I'm assuming this is what we actually use for the stem, because it hasn't come with one. Usually there's a spare stem that comes with it, but this one actually saves a little bit of waste, because it's using the stem that we'll then end up using as the sort of dummy stem. So let's set this into place. So now we need to take a measurement of where this is going to be going. Oh no, I forgot to... you're supposed to screw that on first. I forgot about that. Right, you need to screw the crown onto the stem first. So let's take this back out again. And use your tweezers to sort of hold it on like that. And then screw the crown down onto the stem. There we go. Right. Regardless of the calipers, it's just going to give you an idea as to about where you're going to cut, but always cut off less, because then you can remove more later. So I've got 9.37, but the way that I've been doing it, a little bit bodgy. I'm going to go generously inside here like this, because remember, I've not got a spare stem, and this is some weird movement that I'm never going to be able to get a stem for. So I'm going to go here. Okay. I'll just give that a very, very, very quick file. Even though I have no doubt we're going to have to remove more. Would you look at that? That is scarily close. In fact, I think that's probably going to be fine. Sorry, I didn't show you that there. Let me show you this again. So the crown is screwed all the way down. If we unscrew it, now remember, once the case back's on, it's going to hold the movement in slightly better. So if I now pull out the crown, we'll be changing the time, yeah. And if I push it all the way in, we can then screw it in. So that is actually fine. So I'm going to just put a tiny bit of Loctite on the end of the thread. So there's a little bit of Loctite on the end of the thread. Let's go ahead and screw that in now. There we go, that's going on nicely. Make sure you wipe off any excess. Set the crown back in. And screw it down. Now it's time for the case back to go on. Now this case back was horrible. What we'll do actually is give this gasket a very quick little grease up. I have no doubt that there is no grease on this whatsoever, but this will just give it a fighting chance of being waterproof or water resistant at the very least. Although I wouldn't necessarily trust any of these actually submerged fully in water. Okay, there we go. The gasket is now on. Right, let's take off the finger cots. This is the moment of truth. Can we get this case back to go on and get this watch finished up? Okay. Oh, that's gone on a bit better this time. They call me the landfill watchmaster. Okay, I'm just giving the case a little bit of a wipe down. It's arrived very smudged, which is how all high quality watches arrive. It's working. It's working. It doesn't rattle. Everything is being held into place. So honestly, I think the only problem came from the fact that the dial was just the wrong dial. I think that seems to be the issue, but obviously once it's in the case, the diameter of the case holds the dial perfectly still. So everything is at 12 o'clock. And I can see that it's all aligned perfectly well. Okay, I can't believe we've made it this far. It's time to put the bracelet on. I think that the only issue was that the dial was just the wrong size for the watch. If that hadn't been the case, it would have been perfect. The hands fit onto the movement perfectly well. The dial fits into the case perfectly well. It's just the alignment of those feet. It did come with this ring, which has two little notches. Oh my God. Oh my God. I have a terrible suspicion that that was supposed to hold the feet somehow. And then that was perhaps supposed to sit on top of the movement or something. Okay, so I have made a big boo-boo, and I'm sure lots of people aren't going to have watched this far, but if you have, I've realized what I've done, and I'm here to correct the record. So, I'm an idiot. Basically, this ring that I just decided to ignore because I'd never seen it before is actually everything I needed to make this watch perfect. And now I've messed up the dial a little bit, you know, by prying off the hands and stuff. These dials are only cheap. It's not too bad, and the hands are going to cover it up most of the time. But I've now got a very small little nick just in the center of the dial there. So I would advise if you're going to do something like that, replace it for £10. Obviously, I need to make this video, so I'm going to probably do that privately. But here's the deal. So the two, what I basically realized, I was just editing the video, and when I said that these were at a roughly 4 o'clock and 11 o'clock, I then took my watch and put it up to there like that, and I realized the holes, the sort of little indentations that are here, align perfectly with where the feet that thankfully I left on are. So these feet, do you remember I bent them outwards? That was because there's two small screws that are either side of the movement. Let me zoom the camera in. So if you just lift the movement up like that, you can see there's a screw there and there's a screw there. Now, here's the deal. If you undo those screws, because they were getting in the way of the dial feet, and I was thinking these screws are to hold the movement together, and perhaps they are, but what I'm going to guess they also do is pinch down on the dial feet and then hold that tight into place. So all of the issues that I was having are about to be rectified. So there's the two dial feet. I've bent them back straight up now. You take the little dial ring or movement ring, whatever you want to call it, and then you just place that over the top, and as you'll see, it fits perfectly over those legs. And the moment I did that and realized that this ring is perfectly centered, I then thought, right, okay, so all of the mistakes that have happened here are entirely my fault. So now, if we align the 15-second indicator up here with the stem and place it over the top, what you'll notice is that it's actually going to fit perfectly. So you see how that foot there just slots in behind the screw? You see that there? And then if you flip it over and have a look on the other side, it's done the exact same thing. It fits perfectly over the screw. I know I'm being a little bit rough and ready, but that's just to show you here so that we can all learn together and then not make this mistake again. And then, if you tighten down this little screw here for either side, and I'm going to imagine that these are basically like dial feet screws. That's probably what they're going to be called. So if we tighten that one in and then go round to the other side and do the same there. And it's very hard to film and do this sort of thing. Obviously, you aren't going to have that problem. Now, what you have is a dial that is perfectly on the movement. So that was entirely my fault. That was entirely my fault. I didn't understand how that system worked versus the NH35. So those little screws pinch down on the feet there, and you have to put that little ring in place, which is going to, I don't know, center the dial. I'm not entirely sure what that little ring does. But it's obviously made for that, and it's obviously important. So there we have it. That is how that then goes. Let me put the hands back on. Obviously now at this point, the rest of the video I filmed is somewhat redundant because I am now basing my opinion off of entirely user error, not the actual quality of these products. So that's my bad, but you know, I can't necessarily script something that's that I'm doing live and you know, with you at the time. You know, maybe I should have done some more preparation. I probably should have done. I definitely should have done. That's my fault. But I guess naive me thought that all of this sort of stuff was going to be, you know, more or less the same. But that's entirely my fault. And I've learned a great deal. Perhaps I've learned the most from this watch that I've learned from building any watch. So that's kind of cool if you think about it. There we go. So now we can put the case back on, and I'm not happy with how I've built this. You know, I tend to try and do this with way more care, but all of my taking things apart and putting back together, I don't think that I've been as careful as I should have done. So this is a learning experience for me, definitely, and hopefully for you too. But yeah, there we go. It is all back together. It's ticking away. And perhaps this has been the most valuable watch I've built because I've learnt the most from it. So yeah, I'm sorry about that. That must have been excruciatingly painful for the people that were familiar with this movement and with this watch. Well, building this sort of watch with this movement, and yeah, there we have it. What a learning experience! It's a beautiful thing, and I'm very, very pleased with it. And I'm most pleased by all of the knowledge I've gained from it. But I'm just sad that I did it so horribly wrong because no doubt I've somewhat sort of, you know, impacted its quality now that I've sort of you know, taken it apart and put it back together loads. But yeah, I think it looks absolutely gorgeous like that. It's a shame as well that there's no date window. But again, I think if you are going to build a watch, it is possible to do on Amazon, but the UK selection of parts is very slim. And unless you then end up waiting weeks and weeks and weeks for it to arrive, which potentially you'd rather do that and then have Amazon's customer service, so that's fine. I think it makes more sense to buy it on AliExpress. But I'll leave links to all of these parts in the description below. Let me know how you think that turned out. And there we have it. What an interesting video. I can't always be professional and perfect. I'm learning as well. So what an interesting little watch build. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Goodbye.